Hey, welcome. You know that nagging, persistent ache you can get in your foot or ankle? Well, if that sounds familiar, you're in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into something called hindfoot osteoarthritis. And more importantly, we're going to look at some really innovative injection treatments that are honestly changing the game for people looking for relief. So let's jump right in.
So let's talk about that ache. We've all been there, right? That little twinge or that constant throb after a long day on your feet. But what if it's something more than just being tired? For a lot of people, especially if you're active, this could actually be the first whisper of osteoarthritis. And yeah, I know, we usually think of osteoarthritis in places like the knees or hips, but trust me, it can be a major, major issue for your foot and ankle.
Okay, so what is this thing we're talking about? Hindfoot osteoarthritis, or HFOA for short, is basically a long-term condition. Think of the smooth, cushiony cartilage in the main joints of your foot and ankle. Well, HFOA is when that cartilage starts to break down. And the result, you guessed it, pain, stiffness, and it can seriously get in the way of just moving around and living your life.
All right, check this out. The number you see here is 15, and that's a huge deal. Why? Because hindfoot osteoarthritis typically shows up a full 15 years earlier than the kind you see in the hip and knee. Think about that. It's likely because our feet and ankles take such a beating, right? All those unique stresses and injuries add up. And this is the key takeaway. This isn't just a condition for older folks. We're often talking about younger, active adults, which makes finding treatments that really work and last so important.
Okay, so let's get into the weeds a bit. What really makes this condition different? And why is getting the treatment right so absolutely critical? Let's break it down.
And believe me, the stakes here are really high. A lot of the time, HFOA isn't just wear and tear. It's what we call post-traumatic. It kicks off after an injury, often in a younger person. Now, the traditional last resort is a big surgery called arthrodesis. Basically, they fuse the joint. It gets rid of the pain, sure, but it also gets rid of mobility. And here's the kicker. Fusing one joint puts a ton of extra stress on the joints next to it, which can just cause, you guessed it, more arthritis. So the real goal, the holy grail, is to find something that gives long-lasting relief while saving the joint.
All right, so what have doctors been using for years? Well, the first line of defense has pretty much always been conventional injections. Let's dig into the two big ones.
So, on one side of the ring, you've got corticosteroids. These things are powerful anti-inflammatories. The fire extinguisher analogy is perfect. They come in and just douse the flames of a really bad flare-up. Then on the other side, you have hyaluronic acid. This is what's called a viscosupplement. The best way to think about it is like putting oil on a rusty hinge. It's all about bringing back that natural lubrication and cushion inside the joint.
So how does this actually work on a cellular level? Well, corticosteroids are kind of like a master control switch. They get inside the cells in your joint and basically tell your DNA to stop making all the stuff, the cytokines that cause all that inflammation and pain. It's a really direct, really powerful way to shut down a flare-up fast.
But, and this is a big but, there's a trade-off. Yeah, they're amazing for quick pain relief. The downside, that relief can be pretty short-lived, maybe just a month or 3. And what's even more concerning is that some research suggests that getting these injections over and over again might actually harm the cartilage in the long run. So you can see why the experts are a little divided. The general consensus is they're great for short-term emergencies, but maybe not a long-term plan.
Okay, now let's flip back to hyaluronic acid, or HA. This stuff is cool because it works in two ways. First, there's the mechanical part. It literally acts like a lubricant and a shock absorber, just like the oil for the hinge. But it also does something on a biological level. It sends signals to the cells to dial down inflammation. So you're getting two benefits at once, creating a much healthier environment inside that joint.
And the research really seems to support this. HA is widely considered to have a much better safety profile for long-term use compared to corticosteroids. And get this, studies have shown that getting a series of injections, not just a one-and-done shot, can make a real difference in pain and function. That makes it a super attractive option for managing this condition day in and day out.
Okay, so all of that brings us to the really exciting cutting-edge stuff, the next frontier, if you will. What if we could go beyond just managing symptoms? What if we could actually prompt the body to heal itself? Well, that's where orthobiologics come in.
So what in the world are orthobiologics? Simply put, these are treatments made from your own body's materials. We're talking your own blood or bone marrow. The whole idea is to stop just putting a Band-Aid on the pain, and instead to tap into your body's own amazing healing abilities. The goal is to protect the cartilage you have, cool down inflammation, and maybe, just maybe, even regenerate tissue that's been damaged.
First up on our cellular repair crew is the famous platelet-rich plasma, or PRP. You've probably heard of this one. The process is pretty straightforward. They take a bit of your blood, spin it down in a centrifuge to get this super concentrated dose of platelets, and then inject that liquid gold right back into the joint. Why? Because those platelets are absolutely loaded with growth factors, which are like little messengers telling your body, hey, protect the cartilage here, calm down the inflammation.
Now, if you want to take things to the next level, you've got bone marrow aspirate concentrate, or BMAC. Think of this as PRP+. It has all those great growth factors, but it adds a real superstar to the team, mesenchymal stem cells. These are incredible. They're like the body's master construction workers. They have this amazing potential to actually turn into brand new cartilage and bone cells. We're talking about a truly regenerative approach here.
Okay, time for a reality check. As exciting as this all sounds, we have to be honest. The science for orthobiologics in the ankle joint specifically is, well, it's still pretty new. The really high-quality studies are still kind of sparse, and there isn't one standard recipe for how to do these treatments. The potential is absolutely massive for sure, but we're still writing the playbook on how to best use them for the ankle.
So with all of these tools in the toolbox, how does a doctor actually decide what's best for a patient? Well, let's walk through a practical, step-by-step guide.
This table lays it all out beautifully, like a roadmap for treatment. You see, in the early stages, it's all about conservative care first. Things like physical therapy, managing weight, and maybe those hyaluronic acid injections we talked about. Then, as things progress to an intermediate stage, a doctor might use a corticosteroid shot for a bad flare-up. Or this is where they might consider orthobiologics, like PRP, especially if the goal is to put off surgery. And then finally, only in those really advanced, severe cases does that joint fusion surgery really come onto the table as the main option.
So, we've got a roadmap for today. But what about tomorrow? What does the future hold, and what hurdles are still in the way? Let's look ahead.
Here's something that's so important to understand. The ankle is not just a smaller version of the knee. Not at all. Its joints are tiny and have all these weird shapes, the way it moves, the forces it deals with. It's incredibly complex. Even the fluid inside the joint is different, and all of that can change how these treatments get absorbed and how long they actually work. So you can't just assume that what works for a knee is going to work the same way in the hindfoot.
And this quote from the research really just hits the nail on the head. For a long time, these small, complicated joints in the foot have kind of been ignored in the research world. The paper calls it an untapped niche for exploration. And that's exactly what it is, a massive opportunity to make new discoveries that could genuinely help a ton of people.
So, what's the bottom line? It's this. To really unleash the power of these incredible therapies, we just need better science. It's that simple. We need more top-tier studies with really clear, standardized methods. That's the only way we're going to get the kind of evidence-based guidelines that doctors and patients desperately need to make the smartest choices.
And that leaves us with one last really powerful thought to chew on. Could it be that the ultimate key to healing this kind of joint pain isn't sitting on a pharmacy shelf? Could it be that the answer is already inside of us, just waiting for us to unlock it? Pretty amazing to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this deep dive.